Skype along with voice in a cloud, in a hosted cloud. We've been doing that since 2010. Professional services came along, and then Link 2013 shows up. We have a product called Think 365. Many of you on the call would be aware of that already. It remains a very compelling product. Now we're into the Skype for Business reality, so SIP trunking again remains front and center. We have a strong Office 365 practice alongside Think 365. Professional services remains. We're in the cloud solutions provider space, the Neptune partner, as I mentioned. There's something called Cloud Connector, which we're going to talk about today. Azure Express Route for private connectivity. And we're specialists on the E5 license. And then again, we like to really reference this as often as we can. Well over 300 commercial clients across Canada with 60,000 numbers. So that's the elevator ride on who ThinkTel is for those of you who don't know who we are. We're going to jump right into a case study, and this is one that I got to see firsthand along with my account manager. It's a large insurance firm here in Canada with an office, corporate office in Edmonton and another one in Toronto. Quick profile on who the customer is without their name. Well over 200 locations, so a small number of corporate offices and a tremendously high amount of remote offices, some in the neighborhood of 10, 20 people, and some even home office workers. Well over 2,000 employees, okay, so a large distributed workforce across Canada, multiple time zones. What we've found when we got talking to them, there was no less than 20 different phone systems across pretty much every carrier in the country. When you have a traditional deployment of that nature, and you're in Atlantic Canada, Central, West, Northwest Territories, I mean, every carrier, is involved at one point or another. And some quick numbers, and this is a figure I'd like everybody to really pay attention to across the bottom. Their annual spend on telco voice services alone, so that would be phone lines, phone numbers, long distance, things like that, was in the neighborhood of $1.6 million for the year. Not that unrealistic of a figure. When you have a company of that size, those are, I would say, somewhat common numbers. They were faced with, again, a very common reality that we see out there, where they're really looking to get into some more advanced ways of communicating. They had very old school ways of doing that, like our guy there and sitting in 1982 with his hat on. They were looking at being so spread out with the home office workers, as well as, geez, why couldn't somebody do their job from a beach? They were really looking at that as a way forward as well, and we're struggling with how to get there. And the all-important joining of conferences, conference bridges, much like the one that we've all joined today. Pretty obvious segue there for how powerful Skype for Business is. One of the things that we enjoy as an organization is how easy it is to schedule and join meetings. So they were faced with that challenge as well. So our strategy on the unified communication side was really about enabling that end user. They're, again, very common to be bogged down with emails that are a mile long. Instant messaging, the typical reality we see out there is IM is deployed in some way, shape, or form, but an island of use separate from email all to itself. And the challenge was setting up meetings. And we really wanted to put something on the table that showed the effectiveness of the stack all working together in one single interface, and really address this 20 different phone system element at the same time. It's all about the cloud. When you look at a distributed workforce like this, not every organization has that same reality, but to certain degrees most do, in that there is more than one location, and you might as well get more mileage out of your employees even if they're at Starbucks on Wi-Fi or at their home or wherever they may be. Okay, so really a powerful statement for using a cloud-based service. So the solution that came really to the forefront revolved around the E5 license with Microsoft, and specifically the cloud PBX features of using Skype Online. Okay, this particular customer already was a certain way down the road with E3, so they had an Office 365 deployment. They were already putting the finishing touches on their Exchange migration, so it was fairly good timing to look at extending that further into E5 with Cloud PBX, which then enables them to look at the phase out of these phone systems and do a complete swoop across their whole organization to Skype for Business. We presented a hosted cloud connector offer for Cloud PBX voice enablement, and we are going to get into that in greater detail. ThinkTel SIP trunking. Again, this is probably the service we're known for next to Skype for Business itself, as being the dominant carrier in Canada, so we definitely put that on the table. And then, of course, we had to invest into some network readiness to ensure their Skype solution running on an IP platform was going to perform. There's nothing worse than releasing a new solution into the wild without checking the network reality, because you can have obviously bad end results when you do it that way. So that's what we proposed. Just a quick segue into E5. E5, for those of you who aren't aware of it, and I can't imagine anybody that has a Microsoft account manager is not aware of E5 these days, because certainly Microsoft is out there presenting it with a lot of effort. From our point of view, just without doing the deep dive on absolutely everything E5 does, it's a premium SKU, no doubt about it. This gives you the complete stack from beginning to end. And the big kicker on it, and this is why we're such a big fan of it, and the reason why customers are paying for the additional bump up to E5 is the voice discussion. That tends to be the tail wagging the dog on the whole decision to move to E5 or to remain into lower SKUs like E1 or E3. So specifically, we're talking about Cloud PBX, meaning your users register to Skype Online in Office 365 and leverage the feature set of Cloud PBX, which includes things like PSTN conferencing, PSTN calling, and I've got a little star there because we have a discussion to have around PSTN calling. And then there's a number of other things that come with E5 that any of these by themselves can be a driving force for any given customer. In this particular case, things like Delve Analytics, Power BI, the additional security features, SharePoint, CRM, there's certainly more than this. These were additional nice-to-haves, but they were struggling with the price point on E5 on the basis of things like Power BI or Delve Analytics. Now, an insurance company can certainly benefit from doing analytics in Power BI, so they loved that, but it was difficult to justify the expenditure based on those, so they were struggling with it at that point. I apologize for this slide because it is a bit of an eye chart, but we do have to spend some time on it. When we look at the most important element of Cloud PBX and the E5 SKU is the voice enablement of Skype for Business. And what the picture we're painting here is sort of a feature roadmap with Microsoft in Canada. And then on the far column, ThinkTel's ability to complement and extend that roadmap beyond what Microsoft has today, but remaining in line with the entire vision of E5 and Office 365 going forward. So when we look at this, and by all means, this is a great place to start asking questions or get the IM going. This feature list can be a little bit confusing on how it's presented in terms of the availability of it and how it works in different geographies. Cloud PBX, to start with, has some neat features, right? This is now, you can now say you can take out a phone system using Cloud PBX Skype Online with the features like, hold, transfer, SIM-ring, answer, using your IP phones. There's some additional really neat things like broadcast meetings. If you had a CEO or a political figure that wanted to do a one-to-many kind of broadcast, leveraging the power and the resources of the Microsoft Cloud so you don't have to stand up massive amounts of servers to present to 10,000 people, that's kind of a powerful message. And it, of course, lands across the entire mobile suite. I'm going to just grab a little annotation here. And then we start getting into dialing in for Skype meetings, so PSTN conferencing, toll-free dialing, and this is something that I just learned from Microsoft, I think earlier today when I was speaking with Warren. The toll-free element of dial-in conferencing is something that hasn't been available within E5, and we're told that that's around the corner, something like a July 1st date. Okay, So that's good. As Microsoft continues to expand and add the additional features, we certainly have that available and have had it available in the Think 365 sort of private cloud solution. Okay, so it remains, it remains a way to complement what Microsoft is doing and really ride alongside it. Okay, the big thing that we're here to talk about today, as the compelling, reason why people look at a ThinkTel scenario with Microsoft, is the fact that we can port local phone numbers in Canada. Now, right now, Microsoft is able to do that in the United States, and I think there's a very short list of other countries on that list at this point. Canada, from what we can tell, we've heard end of this year, we've heard sometime into next year. It's a bit of a loose end at this point in that we don't know exactly when they're going to be able to port numbers. What I can tell you as a telco for doing this type of business for well over a decade, dealing with the CRTC isn't easy. So we can come along and bring our solution to the table via Cloud Connector and make that a reality today. So what that means is you can have a Skype Online E5 deployment and port every last phone number that is important to you as an organization, right down to, this is my private number that rings my Skype client, or our main number at reception, whatever it needs to be. We can bring that reality to the table today. And then the segue from there goes into the advantages of having ThinkTel as your telco. Those of you who know us already know that we're pretty good at this. The way we handle things like 911, the way we can deliver channel aggregation. So if you're an organization like the case study that we're talking about today with 2,000 users across all of these locations in Canada, the ability to collapse all of that into a single group of channels. And I'm going to show you some of the cost savings that they realized by doing that in a couple of slides down the road here. Survivable branch appliances. This is a unique feature to what we can bring to the table. This is part of a disaster recovery scenario where you can actually have some gateway devices out at key branch offices that you don't ever want to have that scenario where they lose their connectivity and they're dead to the outside world, and SBA can certainly get you through that. SureCall, we're going to talk about that as well. Very interesting point as well is what we can do in the call routing space, so call centers and auto attendants. This is a somewhat limited offering right now in Cloud PBX, and we can take that as far as it needs to go. For that customer that just needs a little bit more of a robust auto attendant or an IVR, all the way through to a 1,000-seat contact center native to Skype with all of the dashboards and features you would expect. We can bring that reality to the table right now. Network assessments, as I mentioned before, it's usually a mistake to just let Skype run wild without looking at the network. So we can bring that along with our ability to manage the whole thing in a portal. And then a kicker right at the end for an additional discussion, which becomes very powerful for those who are looking for that private connection route all the way to Office 365, not just for Skype traffic, but any workloads that you might have up in Office 365 or Azure. We can bring that to the table as well. So I'm going to pause for a quick second because I need a quick sip of water, but also a great time to get the IMs going or any other even audio questions on feature set before we move into some other parts of the presentation. Are there any questions about what we've put on the table here? Pretty much every customer we talk to sees some tremendous value in doing this. So I think actually some of the audience might be muted. So if we can keep it into IM, because I don't know if you're able to unmute. Okay, I'm going to keep going. And again, keeping the questions in IM, and we can certainly have a free-for-all audio discussion at any time. So I talked about a few things on the SIP trunking side, and I'm just going to put one slide on the board here to go into those in a deeper sense, so you can really get your head around why adding SIP trunking is such a powerful ingredient. We're a Tier 1 carrier, not unlike a TELUS or Bell. So we have a massive footprint that covers coast to coast. We can port numbers in well over 1,200 centers across Canada. Our ability to aggregate that all together into essentially from a billing point of view, a single, concurrent group of channels is really what can give you that powerful shift in the budget side of it. Okay, instead of having all these islands of capacity, it's now, everybody's sharing the same group of capacity. Channel bursting, a lot of our customers really like that for those who have, say, seasonal parts of their business, or they don't want to live in fear of a busy signal. You could, with our service, say, subscribe to 50 channels, and we can give you an additional 50 on top of that for bursting, which costs you nothing unless you dip into it. So very powerful for certain organizations, letting you set your actual channel commit lower than you would have otherwise. SureCall, we talked about this, and to summarize what SureCall is real quick, we get the inbound call running into our good old PSTN network, no matter what. Being carrier grade, this has redundancies and sort of that legacy telco infrastructure to it. Whenever there is an issue with a client, it tends to be on the IP side. So whether that's the wide area network, local, somewhere in between, it was either a fiber cut or a router misbehaving. We can recognize that at the IP level and automatically reroute that call back out the PSTN to, let's say, cell phones. Let's say to a separate hosted auto attendant somewhere. So in the event of calls being cut at the IP side, we can still reroute those calls out in an automated fashion out to whatever number you want. Okay, so it's a very powerful safety net that a lot of our customers see a tremendous amount of value in. UControl portal, can't say enough about our portal for those customers that are with us already. This is back to what we said earlier in the presentation about empowering you as the carrier. You're going to be able to see in real time what your channel usage is. You could say, it looks like last week we peaked out at 28 channels. I'm going to drop my commitment down from 35 to 28. You can do that in UControl as well, and it'll prorate your bill. Ordering new numbers, changing the 911 address information on a per number basis, downloading CDRs, all through this portal. This is just a real quick snapshot of what it does, but a very powerful element of our service. Okay. So this is, really the point that we wanted to drive home today with this particular case study is the value that they see in Cloud PBX, the solidity of the solution itself. But why not talk about the numbers as well? If you can get, a solution like this on the table and then have it, have a massive ROI attached to it, certainly that's a good day at the office for us and for the customer. So this started with something called the Cloud PBX Adoption Offer from Microsoft, which is still in market today. This expires June 30th, and what it is essentially any organization that purchases a minimum of 50 E5s, and that could be a step up of E3 to E5 or a net new deployment. There's $10,000 of funding that flows from Microsoft through to a partner like ourselves, which conveniently covers the setup fee for the solution that we've put on the table. Okay, and then beyond 50, there's an additional $10 a seat. So if anybody's unaware of this, I would encourage you to take a very quick look at it because it's about to expire June 30th, and it's a great way to spin up a proof of concept between now and the end of June, where we could really be looking at a production rollout and riding the wave of that success over the balance of the summer or well into the fall. Okay, and in this case, that's exactly what we did. It was a 50-user proof of concept that had this nice funding kicker from Microsoft. Another slide that I'd like everybody, if you're multitasking, to really pay attention to, because this is the one that drives home what we did here and how powerful it was. So this particular customer, if we look at the first part of it, when they have a current spend on the E3 license, this was their annual spend with Microsoft, they had to look at a bump up to over 900 for the E5. So that represented an increase of over $320,000 in licensing. Okay, and again, we remember it brought all those wonderful things to the table, like Power BI and Delve Analytics, but they were struggling with that extra 300K. Here's the big line right here. That 1.6 million with legacy telcos. By the time we finished crunching the numbers on the SIP trunking side, we came in at about $100,000 for the same service. And I want everybody to process that for a second. How big that moved the needle at this particular customer was amazing. Not the reality at every customer, but to a certain degree, it happens anywhere from, the worst case scenarios we see are in the 20-30% range savings. And then in a case like this, we're actually moving a decimal point on the spend overall. So how that impacted the rest of the discussion, we then go down and look at the hosting of the hybrid voice cloud connector environment. There was that $10,000 setup fee, which Microsoft conveniently covered with the Cloud PBX adoption offer. It's about 17 on the table for a network assessment, and we have yet to actually determine the hardware endpoints. We might have actually gotten to that at this point, but when they had to buy several hundred phones, there's definitely a cost there as well. But even with these additional expenditures, they're looking at really no less than $1 million shift in budget. And I remember when we showed them these numbers, the feedback came pretty quick in that, so all we have to do is buy E5s for this? How many E5s do we have to get? We'll buy E8s. Great. And we get Power BI with it. It was a very powerful scenario, one that we hope really resonates with those on this call and others that are in this same mode, which a lot of people are. So before we move past this, are there any other questions, or would you like us to drill into this calculation any further? Does everybody want to save $1 million? Why not, hey? Moving on, for those who are a little more technical in nature, would want to see something a bit more than an ROI calculation, what we have is a somewhat basic network diagram, by no means a deep dive on the technical front, but one that I hope can paint the right picture of what workloads are landing where. What we have in the middle is the all too familiar Microsoft Cloud, okay? And Skype for Business, Office 365, and the Cloud PBX feature set are on the left side of that cloud, called Office 365. There's an Azure component here as well, most importantly Active Directory running in Azure, and then any workloads in Azure that might be running at the same time. Then below it we have the ThinkTel cloud. Okay, and our cloud is a Canadian cloud. The data centers are in Edmonton, Toronto, Montreal. What we are running in our cloud would be, of course, the PSTN. We are a telco, so we bring that element to the table. And then we're running Cloud Connector in a hosted fashion. For those of you on the call who already have some experience in this, Cloud Connector is being tabled as something you have to deploy on-premise, and seems to be a little counterintuitive for those who are looking for an outsourced cloud-based strategy. So our solution is to essentially run that as a hosted model for the purpose of delivering our PSTN dial tone into Skype Online. And then the connectivity between our cloud and the Microsoft cloud is something we call Express Route. And this means our network is privately connected, this is through Toronto, to Microsoft for either Office 365 or Azure. And then when we look at a private connection out to our end customer locations, and that can be a cross-connect, it could be a layer 2 extension of our network. Some of our clients actually bring their MPLS network into us, so we're riding on their MPLS network. Then we would have a private connection all the way through from the end users all the way through to the Microsoft cloud via Express Route. Okay, so this is something that paints a pretty clean picture of connectivity and the various options that are out there. Bit of a snapshot of the globe and the Azure regions that Microsoft has spun up around planet Earth. And then we're looking at 2 new ones in Toronto and Quebec City. So any organizations that, in some cases when we deal with various verticals, they are cloud averse to say the least. In some cases there's even legislation saying that they're not allowed to put their data into cloud vendors like Microsoft who are outside of Canadian soil. That problem is all but solved. Microsoft has responded. Both Office 365 and Azure now reside in Canada. We have a number of clients that are already in the preview mode on that, and we are doing express route connections to them as we speak. So if that's an important element, by all means reach out. We can align ourselves accordingly from there. So why would somebody want private connectivity? That should speak for itself, but just real quick, gets you to and from Azure, gets you to and from Office 365, for Skype for Business in the case of this. Definitely a chance to address any latency or security concerns with, a predictable enterprise-grade SLA. Okay, we wouldn't be doing this if we couldn't honor enterprise-grade SLAs. There's a large partner ecosystem involved in the Azure Express Route space. So again, anything going in on the Azure side that you wanted to take advantage of, getting a private connection to that cloud can be very important. It's a bit of a segue to anybody who has a global presence as well, if they're looking at peering into other Azure regions around planet Earth, right? We can definitely talk about things like Cloud Connector running in Azure, which takes us outside of Canada, of course, and then into really anywhere. It could be in Europe, Asia, South America, United States, whatever makes sense. And then that last mile connectivity, that's something that we can address. As I said, layer 2, cross-connect, MPLS, really any combination of the above. Okay, what else do we do? This is, we call these our NASCAR slides when we just stick a bunch of logos up on a screen. But the point I make with when I show this slide is a lot of these are competing voice platforms, okay? Cisco is not Microsoft, to say the very least, right? Now there is Avaya, or some of the other platforms. Some of these are gateways that are very complementary to a Microsoft deployment, like audio codes and Sonos and things like that. What quite often happens is there are pockets of PBX or gateways that are already deployed that the organization is not looking to shelf or put in the dumpster right away. So what we can do here, when we bring the value of our SIP trunking service to the table, and we can prop up a hosted Skype for Business solution using Cloud PBX and trunk to the existing PBX platform at the same time. Say they made a recent investment into an NEC phone system, and they're not, the CFO wants to sweat that asset for another 2 years. No problem. We can trunk to both, right? We can port the primary number to ThinkTel, and we can have your Skype client and your NEC handset ring at the same time. So it's a great way to look at bringing Skype into an organization, getting the advantages of it from an end user point of view, joining meetings, etc., and then still leveraging the existing asset of the PBX. And what we find is over time, most of our clients will start moving to the Skype side of it a lot quicker than they thought, just because they fall in love with it from an end user, perspective, from an ease of use, the way their meetings are going, that kind of a thing. This slide doesn't by a long shot represent all of the platforms that we've certified with. These would be just some of the more common ones. Clarity Connect, definitely worth probably a 2-minute discussion. Clarity would be the native Skype for Business contact center partner that we are a gold partner. We've done a number of Clarity deployments. A few of the logos that we have on the screen here are ones that we've actually done. And we're a big fan. We're deploying Clarity Connect in our own contact center. We have a 200-person bilingual call center in Ottawa and Montreal. And Clarity, when you are a Skype environment, this would compete with any, commercial-grade contact center platform out there while leveraging the benefits of Skype itself. So if anybody's in that mode, definitely kick our tires on the Clarity front. We'd love to bring that solution. And most notably here, Microsoft uses Clarity, so that's a pretty powerful reference out of any of those on the board. So the rest of the presentation is, again, more logos, just showing you some of the customers that we've done business with by province. Again, nowhere near all of them, but these would be, a lot of the larger names that you see out there. Okay, giving you a sense of some of the verticals that we're in, oil and gas in Alberta, of course. With the recent scenarios up in Fort McMurray, great use of SureCall, actually, where a lot of the businesses were, temporary or in some cases permanently interrupted by what's happened up there. And we've just been able to reroute the calls accordingly, right? So, by no means is it solving their problems, but they don't have to worry about getting their calls. And that was done very quickly and easily with our service. Okay. That is going to conclude the presentation in its formal sense. So perhaps if we could have everybody unmuted and see what we can get going in terms of conversation audio-wise or in the instant messaging thread, that might be a great way to round out the discussion for today. So. Any questions from anybody? I think everybody is now unmuted, so.
One quick question for you.
Sure.
And it's very simple, but I just want to make sure I have this correct. This is all basing all of the telephone communications then over the internet link?
Does not have to be over the internet. It has to be an IP connection, which the open internet is typically the failover route for any of our commercial customers. And the primary route would be a private IP connection, which, again, depending on your infrastructure, cross-connect, MPLS, layer 2, right? And then the open internet, which, if I could read between the lines, there's concerns about the internet, right? It is the unknown cloud. Go ahead, sorry.
Actually, where my concern is that we're in a remote location, and we have telephone twisted pair lines that come running down to us for our telephone communications, and we have another fiber cable that runs down here for the internet. And my concern is that that's about 20 kilometers in the ditch that these cables run, and the telco one is a little more secured, but the internet one is not. We had it taken out a couple times last summer. So my connection to the internet is very dependent on that fiber at the moment. And if that's where all of our phones go as well, that raises some concerns to me. I like your concept, but the physical side has got me a little concerned.
Yeah, for sure. So this is exactly what we do. We don't leave any of those discussions to chance. We can bring some resources to the table to do some testing on your existing connection to see if there are any elements of QoS that can be put into place, right? It can be part of a network assessment on the LAN or the WAN side, so we definitely bring those resources to the table. And then back to your concern of if this ends up still being a less than stable connection on any given day, week, or month, the sure call scenario will be able to catch that if there are any interruptions on the service, on the fiber link itself, right? Those calls will just hairpin right back out and land on, they could go back to those twisted copper pair lines that you have in place. Maybe those become the redundancy lines. It could be cell phones. It could be, it's any 10-digit phone number that you want, right?
Okay.
So it's there is no one-size-fits-all, every customer does it this way thing. It's a bunch of very powerful ingredients that we can bring to the table for disaster recovery.
Is there contact information for follow-up?
Oh, absolutely. Are you seeing the IM window?
Yep.
Okay, so my email address is in there. There's a lot of my staff on the call as well. If you wanted to lob an email over to me, and the first thing we'll determine is what region you're in, and then I can have our local staff follow up from there for sure.
Perfect, thank you.
No problem. So we've got, there's a number of people from Microsoft on the call, which is great to see. Are there any comments from Microsoft, any things that you would add to this? I'm fishing for a compliment there, Rod. You know.
Sorry, I was getting my mic off of mute.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can
you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is Rod Boudreau speaking, and I'm a partner sales executive here at Microsoft. It's my absolute pleasure to work with ThinkTel, an absolutely terrific team. I think they've done a great job, so thank you for that. In terms of, I'm still fairly new to Microsoft, so I would comment that I myself have been so impressed with the capabilities that Skype for Business brings to bear in terms of the way it integrates, the way it works with all the technologies, and how easy it is to use. So I would highly encourage any participant to take advantage of an offer from ThinkTel to go and do a readiness assessment to see how much money you guys can save as well. And depending on who you are as a customer, typically we will have funding available to help do that. And the only reason I put the caveat on there is because many customers, some of them are taking advantage of the funding that's in place in other areas. So I just want to be cautious of that, but typically this is a no-brainer. And once again, I welcome any calls. I'll put my my contact info up, and I am so appreciative to the ThinkTel team for what a great job they do here on this presentation and on what they do for our clients. So thank you.
Thanks, Rod. Appreciate that. So we are somewhat well known to Microsoft in the various regions, for sure. So we can align ourselves locally with their team, depending on, you know, if the customer falls into the SMB, CTM, CAM, or even the EPG space. We've got some great traction with Microsoft and all of the various resources there. So. I'd like to ensure everybody takes advantage of that Cloud PBX adoption offer. If sliding 50 seats up to E5 from wherever you are currently is within scope already and not a big major decision, why not take advantage of it and get a proof of concept going with a fully voice-enabled Skype solution that we can nail up relatively quickly, and then it has legs into a production scenario past the proof of concept without you having to reinvest. Now, I'll put a caveat beside that. That doesn't mean we've covered every element of your network assessment or endpoint hardware or other things that can pop up, but the base deployment is now ready to move to production and then get you going on a full Skype voice solution in parallel to Cloud PBX as Microsoft continues to expand the feature set on that side.
I have a question regarding the broadcast scenario. Do you have any clients or customers that are using that setup today?
So broadcast meeting would be a function of Cloud PBX really without ThinkTel's involvement. And Paul, I might ask you to chime in here to keep me on track, because I'm not as familiar with broadcast meeting as maybe I ought to be. So I don't think that's something that ThinkTel addresses directly so much as Microsoft went off just within Office 365 itself.
Yeah, that's right. It's a function of Skype for Business Online. I don't know off the top of my head if we have customers who specifically are using that feature, unfortunately.
One thing I do know is the broadcast meeting feature aside, we host a lot of Skype environments with some significant customers, right? Upwards of 2,000 seats, etc. And on many occasions, they've had town hall meetings that have just been running on our infrastructure for the Skype deployment itself and the telephony element of it. And we've done 500-seat conference calls, you know, I wouldn't say on a regular basis. That's not the kind of thing that happens in an average day at the office, but certainly not an issue. What I like about what Microsoft is doing is getting it to a 10,000-seat conference call is actually quite impressive. That takes a bit of horsepower, to say the least. So the ability to do that, we can certainly help you with. So.
Thank you.
You bet. And just another question I'm seeing in the chat thread about bandwidth. I mean, just on the voice side alone, so if we're stripping away the other modalities of Skype, so screen sharing, video, right, any of the other collaboration elements, and boiling it down to just a phone call. The codec that Microsoft has released with Skype, I think it's called the Silk codec, can get you down gracefully in the 20-30K range per active audio session without sounding compressed at all. We get feedback of this is the best sound quality I've ever heard on a regular basis. Very, very low bandwidth impact when you're talking just audio. Obviously, when you start getting into video and screen sharing, that changes and can change significantly. If you don't care about those modalities so much, what you might just see is a choppy video, right? Or the screen sharing will be a little delayed, right? If you do care about that and you want a full HD video experience, much different bandwidth discussion. And that's the kind of thing we do with an engagement, you know, all day long. We look at the bandwidth required to deliver what you're looking for, right? And the express route connectivity, getting you to and from the Microsoft cloud in a private sense versus just traversing the open internet, a pretty nice key ingredient to the whole thing. Is there anybody running anything in Azure? I guess not. Okay. Well, we can certainly stay on the line and use the entire hour of our time. What I will say is I have been recording this session, and we can send a link out to everybody to grab that recording if you'd like to review it again later. Open for feedback here, folks. If you found this a valuable way to spend time, if you would like to see us focus on something else that maybe we missed, or if you found it to be right on the money, I mean, please fire feedback away. We are hosting 2 other sessions, actually, and these will be in-person sessions at the Microsoft office in Toronto on May 25th. We're having a session at the MTC, so certainly anybody from Microsoft who's on the call, feel free to stop by. It is a customer session, so let's bring some customers out. And then again on May the 30th at the Montreal Microsoft office as well, and that will be presented by Bruno Dumichel, our Director of Sales in French. So if there's any interest in those, we can certainly circulate those out if if we wanted to help fill a room on that, and we can really get into a much deeper discussion than you can in a webinar format for sure. So.
Hey, Jim, it's Rod. Just a quick question, and this is, I don't even know the answer to this one myself, so perhaps you do. If somebody wanted to do an implementation on an individual level just to get the look and feel and experience, how difficult would that be to do in a very small setting? Like, what would be a minimum sort of requirement to address this to make it work?
So it's a very good question, and we happen to have a very good answer for that. The Cloud Connector, in its initial state, is really meant for, call it enterprise level deployments in the multi-thousand seat range. We have subsequent versions of Cloud Connector that we're running that get it down to something that works for several hundred seats. And there's also a multi-tenant version that we're working on right now. We have one of our engineers on the call, Paul, who is doing exactly that. I'm not sure if it's ready for release yet. Certainly we could bring some key Microsoft staff in sort of a pre-release mode. But the scenario there is you wanted to use a Cloud PBX feature with maybe 1 or 2 lines, right, where you could have your phone number bolted onto it. I'm sure that's something we could bring to the table for our friends at Microsoft relatively soon. And then that could be a very powerful POC tool or demonstration tool out to customers as well. So there's some comments for Paul right there. Connector shared is private beta right now. So Paul, would you be able to give a comfortable ETA for Rod on that?
Yeah, we're looking hopefully to get it out of private beta in the coming months. So maybe 2 months.
By WPC.
Yeah. It's a surprising coincidence there that might not be a coincidence.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you bet. Obviously the multi-tenant version wasn't the first thing we addressed, right? We're in the enterprise voice business and dealing with commercial clients, so that's first and foremost, right? But multi-tenant, we've had some great success in our own private Skype multi-tenant service, right? And on the SMB market, there's a ton of customers that are hungry for it who have 25 seats, right? So we plan on being in that space in a big way very quickly. Okay, anything else, folks?
Jim, I'll just reiterate that if anybody needs to investigate a funding option, just please feel free to hit up my email address.
Yeah, for sure. And that was Rod again, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, hopefully you all know how to get a hold of us. We're available across Canada and the various regions to work alongside Microsoft. We can spin up a deployment very quickly. I'll get copies of the presentation outward, and again, a reminder on the events if you're able to attend in Toronto and Montreal. Toronto, May 25th, Montreal, May 30th. And a webinar like this is something that really is not a lot of effort on our part. We could have one every week if there's going to be, call it a minimum of 10 people that want to show up and see it. So I would welcome that feedback as well. Those who maybe were able to attend, but that there was 3 other people in your organization that weren't, right? I know we got about 50% of the people actually showing up who responded to the webinar, right? And I had a lot of people just before the call say, sorry, bad timing. So I think we'll do it again next week and just keep this thing going. On that note, thank you all very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The cloud is calling.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah.